Welcome into One of One Sports, the only one for your original sports takes, commentary, analysis, and of course, predictions. Today, we continue with our college football prediction content, picking every Power Four conference champion. Let's get into it. Before we get started, we're trying to hit 200 subscribers on the channel before the start of college football season. Not a lot of time left, so I need your guys' help. So if you like the content, try and support the channel by just hitting that subscribe button. Now, without further ado, we can get started with the video, beginning with the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, where I have the Clemson Tigers being 11-1, 7-1 in conference play, taking on the Miami Hurricanes, also 11-1 overall with a 7-1 conference record. For ACC supremacy. This would be a pretty big event. Clemson to be trying to go back to back. Obviously, these two teams with these records are both, you would think, safely in the playoff at this point. Miami, I predicted having wins over teams like Florida and Notre Dame in the non-conference and only tripping up once. Clemson would have South Carolina and LSU. So these teams are both going to be in the playoffs. But in terms of how high this will be, significant, maybe they could be as high as maybe even a 1 seed potentially, as I don't have any undefeated teams in my predictions. Now, Miami, I wanted to start with them because they've never won the ACC, which is a crazy thing to say. But so this would be, even though you're in the playoff anyways, you've had a great season. I do still think there would be a lot of pressure on Mario Cristobal and the team to be the first team in Miami history to win an ACC championship. That would be a big deal. But when I'm looking at the teams, I think Miami has a good roster, but the talent of Clemson is better. Just looking at things like the ACC preseason All ACC teams, you see Clemson having the quarterback in Cade Klubnik. You see them having defensively, they have TJ Parker and Peter Woods and Avion Terrell. They have Wesco and Antonio Williams on the offensive side of the ball. They have Sammy Brown in the linebacking core. It's just littered with Clemson players, whereas Miami has some guys like a Francis Mauigoa on the O-line, like a Ruben Bain on the D-line. But overall, the collection of Miami doesn't seem to have the star power, at least on paper, that a team like Clemson has. Now, Miami recently has recruited better, so there could be breakout players, especially on the defensive front for Miami we see throughout the year. But when I'm looking at it right now, I do clearly have the Clemson Tigers as the superior team. I think you're going to get better quarterback play from Cade Klubnik, similar level of offensive line play with much better weapons on the perimeter, maybe the best receiving core in the country. And then defensively, both bring in new defensive coordinators. I like Clemson's hire of Tom Allen more, and I think they have the better roster for him to work with. So I think across the board, Clemson looks like the better team. They are my prediction to be ACC champions. Moving on to the Big Ten, where this is one I would not like this at all, and this wasn't how I intended my predictions to turn out. If you ask me who do I think the best team in the Big Ten is in the preseason, I would tell you either Penn State or Oregon, and I predicted both of them to go 11-1 with one conference loss. But the catch is, I think Penn State loses on the road at Ohio State, and I think Oregon loses on the road at Penn State. So that means Penn State has the tiebreaker over Oregon, and Ohio State, with one of their losses coming out of conference to Texas, has the tiebreaker over Penn State. I then think Michigan beats Ohio State as they've continued to dominate that rivalry over the past 4 years. And I think at home, they're going to get that win. So they have the tiebreaker of Ohio State also having one of their losses out of conference. So the teams that I would say are third and fourth in my Big Ten ranking actually end up making the conference championship. So already something I didn't intend to do there. And then to make matters worse, it would be a rematch of the game, something I think this would be terrible for college football. If you play the game, the biggest rivalry in all of college football, Michigan wins that game or Ohio State, either if it played out either way, and those teams have to play again the next week in the Big Ten championship, that just takes so much life out of a rivalry game like that, so many of the stakes out. And this would just, I think, be really terrible to see in college football. Unfortunately, it is the way I predict it right now. I do hope I'm wrong. And if this did happen, I hope there would be changes to it. I don't want something like this to happen. And now with how big the Big Ten Conference has gotten, you'll have teams like Michigan is not going to play Penn State or Oregon, and Ohio State doesn't play Oregon. And so, there's going to be these gaps where the tiebreakers aren't as sound, and you can end up with scenarios like these. So I think maybe a solution would be to bring divisions back. But anyways, I digress. On one hand, I already picked Michigan to win the game a week earlier. So, intuitively, you would think you're still picking Michigan. But there were some factors there, right? I think Ohio State, part of the pressure is it being that regular season finale, the game, all the hype built up to it because of the rivalry weekend. There's something about that Ohio State seems to struggle with. On top of that, Michigan did have home field, which again plays a factor in college football. Moving to a neutral site and a less pressurized environment seems like something that Ohio State would be more comfortable with, getting that second shot. I don't think it's particularly fair to the Wolverines, but that is the way I see it playing out. And like the playoffs last year, Ohio State, when giving a second chance, is really dangerous. And I am going to pick the Ohio State Buckeyes, much as I hate to say it, to be my Big Ten champion. They are overall the more talented team. I don't know if I think Julian Sander, Bryce Underwood will be better this upcoming year, but no doubt Ohio State has better weapons, and they recruit at a higher level. I think defenses can be similar. I wouldn't be surprised to see Michigan win this game if it were to happen, but overall, I don't think Michigan is a Big Ten championship team in Bryce Underwood's first year. I think they have a favorable schedule in the way some tiebreakers played out, as well as getting their rivalry win. It allowed them to get to the spot. But like I said, I think Penn State or Oregon's the best team, and then it would be Ohio State. Michigan I don't think is a Big Ten championship team, though at making the Big Ten championship game at 10-2, they could still sneak into the playoff. The next conference I have is the Big 12, where we have the Arizona State Sun Devils looking to repeat as Big Ten champions. They come in at 10-2, 7-2 in Big 12 play, and they're going to be quarterbacked by Sam Levitt, who I think is going to have a great year. Jordan Tyson, probably the best receiver in the Big 12, so I look for a high-scoring offense. Meanwhile, Kansas State, I think Avery Johnson at this point in the year has proven to be a really dynamic runner, of course, but also has improved a lot as a thrower. I think the ground game is strong, and these are two really evenly matched, and this is a really evenly matched teams. And this is, of course, a toss-up game like a lot of the Big 12 season, I think, will have been. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw TCU in this game, or Baylor, or Utah, or Texas Tech, maybe even some Iowa State. Like, there's 7 or 8 teams in the Big 12 that I could see making this conference championship game. Ultimately, I do think it's a one bid league, I would assume, for a playoff spot coming down this game. These are the two teams I'm picking to get there. And the Big 12 just seems like the more, or where all of the parity in college football is right now. And it feels weird to predict a repeat champion. So I wanted to go someone new. And when it's already 50-50, I'm going to pick the new team in the Kansas State Wildcats. It's a one-off game between two teams that right now I rate very similarly. Kansas State, I think, has a bit of a better ground game. Both really good coaches. ASU, maybe a better quarterback, better receiver options, but Kansas State has great tight ends. Like, there's not a lot to differentiate these teams right now. If I were doing like an AP ballot, they'd be one after another. So this was a true toss-up game, but I'm going to just barely give the edge to Kansas State to make their first ever appearance in the college football playoff by winning the Big 12 championship. Finally, we have the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, where we have a rematch of last year's championship, where I have the Georgia Bulldogs coming at 11-1, 7-1 in SEC play, taking on the Texas Longhorns at 11-1, 7-1 in SEC play for the second straight year. And once again, Texas' only loss on the season I have being to Georgia, just like it was last year going into the SEC championship game before Georgia beat them again. This time, I'm going to predict, both teams' starting quarterbacks are healthy. I'm not going to say Gunnar Stockton gets hurt at halftime like Carson Beck did. And I think looking at these teams, Texas is certainly the team I think looks better on paper right now. I know I gave Georgia the win, but that has to do with scheduling, home field. There's other dynamics at play there. But I think Texas just is more proven talent. Like, I think they've the best defense in the SEC when you look at how good their pass rush should be, how good the linebacker unit should be, led by Anthony Hill, and the secondary potentially being the best in college football. Georgia doesn't have that level of proven talent on the defense right now. A lot has left. I also expect Arch Manning to be a better player than Gunnar Stockton. Texas has the better running back group. O-line play, hard to say, but I do think Texas, even losing guys like Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, Gunnar Helm, still has better weapons on the perimeter. There's just a ton of speed there. So on paper, Texas, I do think is the better team. Getting a home field or not being on a neutral site instead of going on the road should help them here as well. But the problem is that Kirby Smart and the Georgia defense has just seemed to give Sarkisian and Texas problems, whether it be 2 games last year and what I expect to be a third win for them in the regular season. But I will say, after 3 straight losses at this point in my prediction to Georgia, Texas gets over the hump and is able to become the SEC champions in just their second year in the SEC, truly proving that Texas is back. But those are my 4 Power 4 Conference Championship predictions. Make sure to leave your picks for each Power 4 Conference champion in the comments section down below. Like and subscribe for more college football content on the channel. I thank you guys all for watching. Until next time.